You know that moment when your phone starts slowing down, crashing at random times, draining battery even when you're not using it? You realize something's wrong, but you keep using it anyway, until one day you can't ignore it anymore. The device that once served you now runs you. Your mind is the same thing. It's running on old software, installed years ago, patterns written in childhood, updated through trauma, patched with quick fixes that never quite worked. And now, decades later, you're still operating on that same system, reacting to triggers you don't understand, following loops you never designed, running programs you didn't choose. The question isn't whether you have an internal operating system. You do. The question is, who wrote it? There's a man I once knew, mid-40s, successful by most measures, good career, stable life. But every time someone criticized him, even gently, he'd feel his chest tighten. His mind would spiral. He'd replay the conversation for days, sometimes weeks. He thought this was just who he was, sensitive, thin-skinned. He'd learned to live with it. Until one day, in a conversation neither of us planned to go deep, he said something that stopped us both. He said, "I think I'm still running on my father's disappointment, 30 years after leaving home, and the operating system was still the same." Most of us inherit our internal systems. Most of us inherit our internal systems. We don't build them consciously. They're assembled quietly, piece by piece, through the environments we grew up in. The words spoken to us, the silences that taught us what not to say. By the time we're adults, the system's already running, automatically, invisibly, relentlessly. And here's the paradox. The system that once protected you may now be the thing holding you back. The hypervigilance that kept you safe as a child now makes you exhausting to be around. The perfectionism that earned approval now makes you impossible to please. The emotional walls that shielded you from pain now keep out intimacy. You're not broken. You're just running outdated software. The Stoics understood this, though they didn't call it that. They called it prohieres, the choice of what you allow to run inside you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." Not just your thoughts, the quality of your mind, the operating system itself. He wasn't talking about positive thinking. He was talking about architecture, about what gets installed at the deepest level, about the difference between reacting from old programming and responding from conscious design. Because here's what most people miss about Stoicism. It's not about suppressing emotion or controlling outcomes. It's about upgrading the system that processes emotion and interprets outcomes. It's about becoming the programmer, not just the user. Think about what happens when someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel anger rising. Your heart rate spikes. Maybe you curse. Maybe you tailgate. Maybe you carry that tension home and snap at someone you love. Now, here's the question. Where did that response come from? Not from the car that cut you off. That was just input, a stimulus. The response came from your system, from the way your mind has been programmed to interpret disrespect, threat, injustice. Your operating system took neutral data, a car changing lanes, and ran it through a series of hidden scripts. I was wrong. They don't respect me. I need to retaliate. I need to restore balance. All of that happened in milliseconds, automatically, invisibly. And once the program runs, you believe the output is reality. You believe your anger is justified, necessary, inevitable. You believe it's them, not your system. This is what the Stoics meant when they said, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. It's not the world that needs updating. It's your I.O.S. and O.S. So how do you install a new system? Not quickly, and not by force. You can't just decide to think differently and expect decades of programming to vanish. That's like trying to rewrite code while the program's still running. It doesn't work. You just crash. The reset begins with something quiet. The reset begins with something quieter, something the modern world has almost forgotten: observation. But even that phrase sounds too intellectual, too detached. What we're really talking about is this: learning to watch your mind the way you'd watch a weather pattern. Not controlling it, not judging it, just noticing. You're sitting in a meeting. Someone dismisses your idea. You feel heat rising in your chest. Your jaw tightens. Thoughts start forming. They never listened to me. I should have stayed quiet. I'm not respected here. Old system, you believe those thoughts. You react from them. You either shut down or lash out. The program runs. New system, you notice. You see the thought as a thought. You recognize the old script loading. And in that space, that brief quiet space between stimulus and response, you have a choice. Not to feel differently, but to decide what you do with what you feel. They think you're supposed to look at suffering and say, I choose not to be affected. No, that's repression. That's just another broken system. The Stoic reset isn't about not feeling. It's about not letting your feelings run the system. It's about processing emotion through wisdom instead of panic, through perspective instead of reactivity. It's upgrading from automatic to intentional. Every time someone pulled away, even slightly, she'd panic. She'd text too much. She'd ask for reassurance. She'd create the very distance she feared. She knew it was happening, but she couldn't stop. The system was running her. One day, she tried something different. When she felt that familiar panic rising, the urge to text, to check in, to control, she didn't fight it. She just named it. She said, quietly, to herself, this is the abandonment program loading. Not a judgment, not a solution, just recognition. And something shifted. Not immediately, not dramatically, but over time, that simple act of naming, of seeing the program as a program, created space. She started to notice the pattern before it ran. She started asking, is this response serving me, or is it just old code? She began rewriting, line by line. This is the real work of maturity. Not achieving some perfect calm, not eliminating triggers, but learning to see your own system clearly enough that you can choose what runs. Because here's the truth. You can't control what enters your mind. Thoughts will come. Emotions will rise. Memories will surface. That's just input. That's the world sending data. But you can control the processing. You can decide which thoughts you give power to, which emotions you act from, which memories you let define you. The Stoics had a word for this too. Hegemonica, the ruling center, the command post of the soul. The part of you that decides what gets installed and what gets deleted. Most people never discover they have one. Scripts about success, about worthiness, about what it means to be loved, to matter, to be safe. You learn that love means sacrifice, so you exhaust yourself for others. You learn that anger means strength, so you harden when you should soften. You learn that asking for help means weakness, so you carry everything alone until you break. None of these scripts are true, but they're installed, running in the background, shaping every decision, every relationship, every moment. And the tragedy is, you think they're you. Hurry until a moment. The reset begins when you realize they're not. You are not your fear. You are not your shame. You are not the voice that says you're not enough. Those are programs, installed long ago, by people who are running their own broken systems. You are the awareness beneath all of it, the observer, the programmer. And once you see that, really see it, everything changes. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying you can rewrite yourself overnight. But I am saying this. You are not fixed. You are not hardwired. You are not sentenced to repeat the same patterns until you die. You are soft code, not hardware. You can update. You can patch. You can install something new. Here's how the reset works practically. First, identify the loops. First, identify the loops. What situations trigger you? What patterns repeat? When do you react instead of respond? Write them down, not to judge, just to see. You can't debug a system you won't look at. Second, Catch the load screen. That moment before the program runs. The pause between trigger and reaction. That's your access point. That's where the new system gets installed. Train yourself to notice it. Even half a second of awareness is enough. Third, rewrite one line at a time. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. Pick one script, one reaction, one belief, and every time it tries to run, pause. Ask, is this serving me? If not, choose a different response. Not perfectly, just intentionally. Fourth, run the new code repeatedly. New software takes time to install. You'll default to the old system. That's normal. But every time you choose the new response, you're strengthening the new pathway. You're teaching your mind, this is how we process now. Over weeks, months, years, the system changes. The man I mentioned earlier, the one running on his father's disappointment, he started practicing something simple. Every time he felt that tightness in his chest after criticism, he'd pause. He wouldn't argue with the feeling. He'd just ask himself, is this my father's voice or mine? Most of the time, it was his father's. And slowly, that recognition created distance. The voice didn't go away, but he stopped believing it was truth. He stopped operating from it. He said to me, months later, I feel like I'm finally running my own life. That's the reset. You don't need years of meditation or a retreat in the mountains. You just need to stop living on autopilot. You need to start noticing what's running inside you. And you need the quiet courage to ask, who installed this? And do I want to keep it? Because the mind you have right now was built for a life you no longer live. It was designed to survive circumstances that no longer exist. It served you once, but it may not serve you now. The Stoics said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But they didn't mean control in the forceful sense. They meant authorship. They meant you get to decide what runs. You get to choose the system. Not once, not in some perfect moment of enlightenment. Every day, every trigger, every loop. And health. This is the work of the second half of life. Not achieving more, not proving more, but becoming conscious enough to choose how you process what happens to you. To stop running old code written by fear, by pain, by people who didn't know any better. To install something new, something intentional, something yours. You are not the anger that flares when you're disrespected. You are not the anxiety that grips you when things feel uncertain. You are not the shame that whispers you're not enough. You are the space in which all of that appears. And in that space, you have a choice. Not to eliminate the old system entirely, but to stop letting it run you. To become the programmer of your own mind. There's no dramatic before and after. Just a quiet shift. A steady awareness. A life that slowly, gradually becomes yours again.